chairs up here. Welcome to tonight's debate. We have two debates, one between the two mayoral candidates, Shane Evans, the independent, and Dale Seward, Republican. And then the other one is between the two candidates for city clerk. We have Democrat Leanne Aldrich and Republican Dee Dellenbach. With the Comet are hoping that listening to the questions and the answers will help you all decide who you want to vote for, kind of clear up some things about what is going on in the city perhaps, and who will best represent you in the next 4 years in those two positions. I want to introduce editor Susan Scholl, editor of the Comet, Susan Scholl. Yeah. And so the process tonight is pretty simple. We've developed questions, and I'll be happy to ask those questions. I hope that you all will ask questions as well. When you want to pose a question, kind of do that, and I'll be standing over here at this podium. I'll ask for you to stand up. I'll ask for you to give at least your first name and where you live. If you live in Delphi or out of Delphi. And the reason, we didn't do this last week, but the reason it's necessary to do it is because this debate will be on YouTube. It's Debbie Lowe channel, and nobody knew who was speaking in the audience last week because I can't turn the camera because I'm over here asking questions. So just stand and kind of identify yourself and ask your question, and I think that'll be fine. Anybody have questions right now before we begin? Okay. The first debate we're going to do is the mayoral debate. So if Mayor Evans and Dale will come forward.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the Comet and putting this on. We appreciate that. I'm Dale Seward. I'm the Republican nominee for mayor. I've served 4 years on the city council. I've never missed a meeting. I've served about 3 years on the area plan commission, 6 years in the Delphi Chamber of Commerce, 5 of which I was the president, and 10 years with our local law enforcement, where I was I served 2 years as a drug enforcement officer on an undercover unit. And I also own 2 businesses. Barry Goldwater said, the voters deserve a choice and not an echo. He's right, and I'm not an echo. So my policies will differ from what we've been seeing the last 12 years, but especially the last 4 years. The citizens who encouraged me to run, and I agree with them, that the city is not headed in the right direction. I have a very different approach, and I will put the city in a different direction than what we were going. Number one, I will be a pro-growth mayor. I will do that by building houses and forming partnerships with Indiana Packers, U.S. Aggregates, especially the school corporation, the Andersons, and anyone else. Number two, I will be more responsive to the citizens of Delphi by better enforcement of our ordinances that will make our city cleaner and safer. Number three, I will pursue different and better financial solutions and options for the water situation. Number four, I will add another layer of oversight to the water department and the wastewater department by demanding budgets for each of those departments. I don't believe that it's fair to ask the citizens to pay back loan payments without them knowing what the cost of doing business is from the city. And lastly, I will help our elderly and others by being more responsive to potholes and street conditions. It's all about leadership, and it's all about vision. Thank you very much.
Candidate Evans.
All right, thank you. I'm Shane Evans. I am the incumbent mayor for the city of Delphi, where I've been the mayor the last 3 3/4 years. If I talk too fast, my grandma will let me know, so the rest of you don't have to. I have a problem with that. I'm a 2008 graduate of Delphi Community High School. When I was in school, I was involved with football, wrestling, entertainers, choir, Spanish Club, National Honor Society, pretty much any club that they had, I wanted to be involved. I'm 2012 graduate of Wabash College. I got my BA in chemistry. I don't use that except when we're talking about water stuff anymore. And I graduated from IU Robert H. McKinney School of Law in 2015 with my JD. I really just wanted to cover some of the things that we've done here in the city of Delphi in the last 4 years, if that's all right. I didn't really hear that at the last debate, so I'll try to do it in 3 minutes or less. All right, so, and this is just a summation that I thought of probably in 10 minutes, but in the last 4 years, we finished the Stellar project, we finished the pump station project, finished the interurban trail project, we finished the airport runway extension. We've started a water project that's been going on for at least 2 decades, if not longer. We've started generating revenue with the Delphi TIP. We put together a road asset management plan, a site and curb inventory, and a parks assessment. We've conducted maintenance on 18.8 miles of roadways in the city of Delphi. There's only 2.3 miles that we haven't touched. Of those, about half a mile is alleys, and the rest are scheduled to be completed, I think, 2021. We've also received about 1.2 or $1.3 million to go towards those roadways, and we've leveraged money that the state gave us before to get those grants. We've been awarded $1.275 million for the Monon High Bridge Trail. City Council's passed 55 ordinances. We've maintained a cash balance of roughly 218% of our normal operating revenue for the general fund, which is, at least when I looked earlier this year, was the highest of any city in the state of Indiana. There was a couple towns that were higher. Our adjusted net assessed value has gone up $8.5 million, which is, I think, roughly 12.9%. For comparison, that's a higher percent increase than Attica, Monticello, Lafayette, Frankfort, Knox, and Logansport. For another comparison, the town of Flora in the last 4 years has increased by $33,000 and some change, and we're at $8.5 million. Property tax rate for the overlaying district of the city of Delphi, so that includes Delphi, Library, Township, County, and School. It's gone down from $3.37 for $100 of assessed value to $3.27. For the city of Delphi itself, our rate has gone down from $2 to $1.80. A lot of that's due to the net adjusted net assessed value because we've had the same property tax levy over the last 4 years. Thank you.
Well.
Okay. I have candidate Evans, say Shane. What do you believe your biggest challenge will be if you're elected?
Really, I think over the last 4 years, we've put the foundations in place. We put these plans together for roads, for streets, for sidewalk, for other infrastructure, whether it's water projects, replacement of old wastewater, appliances, equipment. So we put these plans in place to get the foundation, but really it's taking that next step. And the next step is bringing residential development into the city of Delphi. I agree with President Pro Tem Seward on that. Yeah, I got you. Filling more downtown businesses and really promoting the city of Delphi. I think we've done a great job of making the city of Delphi a place where you want to come, where you want to do business, where you want to live, and really it's taking that to the next level. Now, I can't predict all the challenges that are going to be out there. There's challenges that are unforeseen every day, but for the foreseeable challenges, it's taking the city of Delphi to that next level.
And the same question for you.
What was it again?
What do you think, if you're elected, what do you think the biggest challenge is going to be as mayor?
I think that's two or threefold. I think it's bringing the community together. The community seems to be splintered, and I think that that's important. I also think that figuring out a way to offset the additional water expense to our elderly population and our disabled population. We're running at 60% poverty right now for the city, and this is going to be difficult for them. So I've been trying to come up with creative ideas that might be a good solution to making that possible. But we've got to fill up the businesses. We've got to build houses. Those are the biggest challenges I see.
Yeah, may I ask a question? Is that part of the point?
Yes, it's
What,
a debate.
I know our low to moderate income percentage was 61%. Is that what you're saying is the poverty level, or is that from a different source?
That's a poverty level based on school figures.
And that's just for the city of Delphi?
Yes.
I've seen different rates that were closer to 15%, so that's why I'm asking.
Anybody with a question? Nobody has a question. Dr. Jodar, please stand and say where you live.
Own property within the city limits, reside outside. Unable to vote inside, I pay taxes inside. I'm concerned about the direction, the flow. I'm concerned when I attend the city council meetings, the adversarial attitude that seems to be very favorable. How can we go about developing more cooperation? How can we go about developing more positive collaboration? How do we get the team effort to start pulling the wagon in the same direction?
And Tom, who is that question directed to?
Oh, everybody! Mr. Seward, he's running for mayor.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that I would implement very early on, I would have a code of conduct to where meetings would not get out of hand. And I think that's important. I've seen some in other places that have those, and it keeps the turmoil down to a positive level. I don't know that you want to have too much squelching of disagreements, though. I mean, you know, if you just want people to go in there and say yes and be yes men to everything that comes up, I'm not sure that's really in tradition with our government, number one, and number two, not really sure that's what you want, because you get somebody in the mayor's seat and everybody agrees with them. Where is the checks and balances there?
Is your question limited to the city council meetings themselves, or collaboration in general across the city of Delphi or Carroll County?
I think he said.
And as I've attended the city council meetings, that to me seems to be a hostile den. I've been other parts of the community where there's more civility. So I'm wondering, why don't we have some positive civility, not necessarily total agreement, but why can't we seem to work together?
Thank you for clarifying. Something that I would like to see, and I introduced it, I think, in 17 and 18, will be to get councilmatic committees put together, which gives an opportunity. It's the same way that they operate at the state General Assembly level. When they're acting on a bill, really it's just the General Assembly and they're working on it. But they have hearings outside of that that could allow to bring adversarial opinions and try to come up to some sort of compromise so that we're not doing it at the formal city council meeting. I believe we would also get more public input. We could have citizens on these councilmatic committees or encourage people from across town to do that. I can't say that's going to prevent all conflicts within city council meetings, but it should remedy that to an extent that you could come up with some sort of compromise at those public hearings.
Mayor, I have to ask, does that mean you do the business of the city before you get to the meeting? And
No, ma'am.
everything goes smoothly? You know me, yeah.
No, you would still take final act, and I know, when I brought up the councilman committees, I recommended we have 3 people from the city council, which is the majority of the city council, which means that, they could act on official business if they were acting as the city council at that point. I'm not sure how, what's his name down in Indianapolis?
Luke Britt,
Thank
public
you.
access.
If he feels the same way, if you have a committee set up, so they're actually acting as members of the committee. But no, it would be to increase communication, to increase collaboration, to invite people in to speak, to take more time and discuss the issues more thoroughly. A lot of times at city council meetings, we have people that come for 1 or 2 specific issues, and you feel obligated to keep the meeting moving along quickly so that everything gets addressed, but one person's not sitting there for a long time waiting for their issue to be addressed. So I think you could tackle specific issues if you have councilman committees meeting outside of the regular meeting.
And so there would be many more meetings in a month.
Yes.
Do you want to respond to that?
I think that could all be cleared up without committee meetings like that by simply getting the agenda to us, getting the agenda to the city council meeting prior to Saturday afternoon or within 48 hours of the meeting. I mean, I think that would spur a lot of people who sit on the city council not to be waiting till the last minute to go out and look at a piece of property, to go out and talk to someone or whatever. They would have that information there to be able to come in and do a little bit better formed opinion on that.
You want to say anything? Mayor, Mayor Evans, you heard your opponent talk about budgets for the water and wastewater departments. And you've never done that. Tell me, can you say why?
So we've never had a written budget down on paper. Superintendent Myers at the beginning of this year, and the beginning of every year, we sit down and we go over how much money we're gonna have to do, mostly line replacements. So we look over the last year and we look at employee compensation, salaries, what's the other one, health insurance and all the other employee benefits. We look at how much power we used the year before, chemicals, how much we used to fix leaks, and we come up with a number that estimates how much we think we're gonna be able to have for those other expenses that need to get done but may not be as pressing as fixing a leak. So at the beginning of at the beginning of this year, that number was somewhere around $150,000. On the wastewater side, we haven't. Dick Vansicle has been operating out of revenue. He's been replacing equipment as needed, and he's also been able to fix. We had the force main across Deer Creek became exposed. We were able to fix that. Still make a profit. In government, it's not a profit, but we were in the black for the wastewater department last year.
And I don't think anybody's saying that either one of those people are mismanaging the money.
I didn't want
Not at all.
that.
Yeah,
they-
no. I don't want anybody to think that.
I didn't think
I think it's about government accountability and what's happening. And I think that's where the questions keep coming from.
And all in terms of the funds data is all available along the Gateway Indiana. So if you want, you could look it up on your phone right now, how much income was received into 601, which is water operating, how much was expended last year. It gets a little more difficult when you go into years that you have bond proceeds. So last year we had $7.7 million in bond proceeds. So it looks like we had this huge revenue when actually it's bond revenue that we're going to be spending over the course of a year and a half. So it gets a little more difficult on that, but water operating is normally a pretty good one that you could look at. Same with wastewater.
Debbie? Yes, please stand and say your name and where you live. And thanks for asking.
Linda Gingrich, and I live on West Vine Street. How can you know what you can do as far as increases in salary for your personnel? What kind of monies you're going to have available? You say you get down, you estimate all this. Why can't it be put in a budget? It's the same thing. A budget is not in stone, but it is a working document that says, we think we're gonna get this much money, and this is how we're gonna spend it. So why is it that we can't have a budget?
That's essentially what we do. We estimate revenue prior to the increase was $1 million a year. After the increase in 2019, it's gonna be 1.4 million because of the 40% increase in water rates. After that, it'll be $2 million roughly after the next increase comes into effect.
But
So
why
we-
can't it be put on paper as a budget?
It could very easily. You're gonna run into issues with water leaks, you're gonna spend more money, or you're gonna spend less money, and you may get yourself cornered into a box where you have $100,000 budgeted for water leaks. You don't wanna spend any money out of your maintenance or things that we need to do, and so at the end of the year, you make a revenue, but there's things that we didn't do. And it could also go the other way. Budgets, typically, governmental budgets are very fixed, for the general fund, edit, MVHLRS, all the other funds that we budget. And you could put yourself really back into the corner on that.
Well,
Deb, could you stand
Is
and
it-
say your name, please, and where you're
Beverly
living?
Cease, Hillback Heritage Trail.
I've got a help.
Is this the way that it's always been done for like generations, or
Um,
are you just continuing what's worked so far?
I believe under Mayor Strassers and Ford, that they didn't have budgets. I could be wrong about that. I know under Mayor Dyward, they did for some years. Superintendent Myers, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Did you have budgets under Ford or Strasser?
I wasn't in charge of the board. Strasser tried to, and we didn't, we kinda had them. On paper, you know.
Anybody else with a question? Okay.
Do I have a chance to respond?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Yeah.
When I say that we need a budget, I understand the fact that the state of Indiana does not require a budget for either one of those departments. What I am saying is, and what works in other communities, is the fact that they develop soft budgets. And that takes care of a lot of what you're asking and other things like that. I've got a soft budget, a copy of a soft budget from Knox, which is a very similar sized city to what we are. And they have things in there like we project maybe $4,000 for fuel expenses this next year. Well, they can go over that because it's not a hard budget, it's a soft budget. It gives them an idea. And that way, when you have that, it's available a lot better and a lot easier to the citizens. It's more user-friendly as opposed to requiring somebody to go on Gateway. I have trouble finding stuff on Gateway. So, this way, with a soft budget, it gives you some accountability, it gives you some direction, and you can use it to be able to figure out where you're at. So, just to clarify what I was talking about.
And, Mary, do that.
It's a debate.
I don't know how many rebuttals you
Yeah,
offered.
let's get it down, yeah.
I'm not totally sure that even a soft budget or hard budget would satisfy you. Because the line items established within the water department, it's pretty clear. You have employee compensation, you have employee benefits, you have some other line items that are directly related to wells. But generally for those maintenance items, so when we put the new line down US 421 before they paved that, that's gonna be coming out of the same line item as when we had a leak at the end of Union Street. I believe it's all under miscellaneous maintenance, right? So to do it to a level that, to your satisfaction, I think you would have to break that down even further, where you would have a line item that's things we want to do and things that we expect to break. I mean,
Well, you probably know how much your attrition has been over the last 5 years. You can look back and see how much you spent because of breaks or whatever, as opposed to what you spent.
well, that's what you would do when formulating a soft budget, and that's what
Right.
Craig and I go through at the beginning
So,
of the year.
then why can't you put it on paper?
Probably could very easily.
Okay then. Yes.
Gail Connor, Franklin Street. My question is, continuing with this, because many times we've been told that the water department and the wastewater don't have a budget because, well, first of all, it's not required by the state, but also because that's consumer driven by the amount that the consumer uses. Over the last year through the water meetings with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, many times they explained that they had contingencies for these big projects. And sometimes those contingencies ran as much as 50%, which was tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars at times. So my question is, at the end of the year, if you find yourself with one of those departments in the red, where does the money come to bring that budget balance at the end of the year? Where's the money come from to do that?
Is this for me?
Yes.
So I guess there's two parts here. What Butler, Fairman, and Seifert would be working on would be phase 1 and 2 of the water project, where they have the contingency built in. They did have, I believe it was 15% contingency, and then they also had market escalation built in there. You call them both together, contingency, but really they were planning for inflation cost within the market escalation. If those projects were to go over, or look like they were gonna go over, it would probably be a reduction in the scale of the project. Or looking for ways to value engineer as opposed to taking money out of water operating or construction fund or anywhere within the water department, most likely. If the water operating fund was running in the red, I believe we do have some money in reserves in the water utility, depending on how far in the red that it was. But if you consistently ran in the red, you'd have to look at doing a rate increase to get yourself up to that level, and probably just a little bit beyond that to account for inflation and wage increases in the future.
So the water or the money in reserve, is that from consumer funds or is that from tax dollars?
No, that would be from consumers.
Consumer. Okay, thank you.
Hasn't one department borrowed from the other and vice versa in the past?
Not in the last 3.5 years. It's permitted under state statute, but I believe the department has to pay it back by the end of the year. So by the time you figured out that you were going to be in the red for the end of the year, you may not give yourself enough time to pay it back.
You can't go in the red if you don't have a budget line item. So that's, that's part of it too. Because it's so, the way it is now, it's so flexible, you can do whatever. That's what I mean, there has to be some kind of accountability with the soft budget.
Yeah, everybody.
Sure.
You can see that you're in the red because your expenses outweigh your revenue. It'd be pretty easy to see at the end of the year when the water operating fund, if you outspent your revenue.
Who sees that? Who sees that, Mayor? Because I go to the Board of Works meetings and I see a list of claims.
Right.
Sometimes there are questions, sometimes there are not, but I don't see anybody looking at a sheet, a budget sheet of how much has been spent, how much do we have left, and that kind of thing. So who reviews that kind of thing?
That's something, we really don't look at revenue on any of it throughout the year. Whether it's for expenses out of the general fund, when's the last time, I don't know if the city council has looked at the revenue, or the Board of Public Works and Safety have looked at revenue throughout the year. In the past, actually, under my administrations, the first time I believe that we actually had forecasted revenues when we were putting together our budget for the next years, and that's why we waited for our budget workshop to be held in August, after hopefully the net assessed value would be out and we could look at what our revenues would be. It's something, in terms of looking at revenue throughout the year, it's something that all units of government should probably do better, but it hasn't historically been done.
Well, I think the county council reviews financials every month, and they know what is in each line item in each department.
So they look at a bank statement essentially?
No, they look at the auditor. Prints out the financial forms and distributes them before the meeting. I have some in my inbox right now for next week's meeting.
So you're looking at fund history essentially, would be the printout that we would get from the clerk treasurer's office. And I do print out every 2 weeks following the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting. I send it out to all the department heads, including the airport manager. Half the time I forget to send it to the fire chief. I've been trying to remember more. So we are looking at that every 2 weeks, the department head, the clerk treasurer.
Okay. I just wondered because I never see it.
Sorry, I was thinking of something.
Did you have anything else?
I think the public deserves to know. I think this ought to be readily available to the public and the city council and other people who have vested interests in this. Certainly the citizens do, and certainly the city council does. We're making decisions. We need, as I said in my opening statement, we need the most information we can get.
Oh, yes, and, please
So-
say who you are and where you
I'm
live.
Anita Whirling, I live in Delphi, and I guess the question that I have is maybe kind of isn't this information available in the clerk's office?
It is,
Yeah.
yes.
So anyone could go in and ask the clerk for this information, is that correct?
Correct.
The city. City clerk.
The clerk
Clerk.
treasurer, yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Martin Overholzer, I live in Delphi, graduated in '71. It's a beautiful city, and we talk a lot about expenses. One of the things I think might be of interest is how do we promote the city, the beauty, the lifestyle that we have here?
and who is your
Both
president?
candidates, both candidates.
Okay, Dale, you want to take the first one?
The city council this year appropriated enough money to have a part-time economic director, if you will, whatever the title will be. Under my administration, I would utilize that person to take care of all promotions with the businesses. I would get us on TV. I would try to get us out into other areas to where people could see how beautiful our city is. You're absolutely right. But, you know, here's a perfect example. You come down Heartland, there's no sign there at Old 25 that says Delphi this way. There is a sign at 421, but there's none at 800. Now I'm not so sure you want one there. But there is no sign at Main Street. It just says Main Street. Where, Main Street where? We don't do enough. We're not doing enough to get people in here and to look at our beautiful city, because you're absolutely right, it is beautiful.
Thank you.
Notice how I dropped the candidate thing.
That's all right. And I do appreciate the city council approving part-time community development director. It's one that the city did have at least as far back as Sam Dyward's when he was his administration. It was actually cut by the current city council 2 or 3 years ago. And it's been hard to promote or have a person in that position that could look at that. And promotion it's more than bringing people into Delphi. We have to work with the County Chamber of Commerce, the local businesses, the people of Delphi. I know there's volunteer groups that do home tours, which brought in, 400 or 500 people last year. People that are gonna come back to Delphi and shop and do business, maybe even relocate to the city of Delphi. So you need to work with volunteer organizations on that. But some of it is the nitty gritty, putting together lists of vacant buildings in the downtown, how many square foot they are, how many, what their utilities costs are, what the rents are, who the owner is, that person's contact information. That's all been put into the job description of the community development director for next year. I think that's all I've got.
My guy will take that, or my person, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
My person will take that and organize that, bring it together, and start doing that and going forward with trying to get those things accomplished.
Okay, so, to Dale, and then first Shane. What is more important for Delphi right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing and expanding, better utilizing the existing homes and storefronts? What would you focus on first?
Both are very important. Is there 2 or is that 4? All of them are very important.
Well, it's either building new or rehabbing old.
Okay.
Kind of.
I believe the most important thing, and it doesn't beat it by a bunch, but I believe the most important thing is to build houses. We're losing population. We haven't gained population of any significance since 1900. We're the same way, but yet our tax base keeps going up. We need people to move here. If we have to be a bedroom community for Lafayette, so be it. I mean, you know, that's not, it's not exactly not working for Brookston. I know I didn't say that right, but You know, you've got places like that, they're building homes, and people are coming there. That means more shoppers. That means more business visits. It means more tax revenue. But more importantly, it means the potential for more children in our schools. We've lost 299 kids from the school from 2006 to 2019. And that translates into a lot of money, because the state reimburses us, somewhere around $5,000 a kid. And the schools losing a lot of money. So I think building is important, but your rehab is also important. You don't want to let one segment of the population or the city go down. Like John F. Kennedy said, a rising tide lifts all boats. We've got to do that.
So how would you do that? And Shane will get to you next.
Which part?
The city will get the
Which part?
both. I mean, how would you get more houses built? How would you do something with storefronts downtown? That all takes money.
Right. To a point, yes. I've been working with 3 or 4 developers and 4 or 5 builders, and we've been working together trying to figure out a solution. We've had, in fact, we had 13 acres up on Armory Road that was everything but signed and ready to go. Probably could have fit in about 25 houses. However, it got interfered with, and we lost it. We need to work together with those guys and put them together. If you have to put them in the same room, put them in the same room. It's a matter of doing business. And that's what I would do. I would use my business skills, and I would put them together to try and get a deal cut to where we could move forward with that.
Could I ask a point of clarification? You said the tax base keeps going up. You mean the net assessed value or tax? What do you mean by that?
Well, you can't look at the city from 1900 to now and not see the fact that the population has kind of went like this over the time. The totals are just virtually the same. But yet we have more services, we have more rate increases, we have this, we have that. So if you divide that by the same amount of people, that's a higher dollar.
So you're saying our per capita taxes? Okay. I just wanted clarification on that. The question is to whether to build new or rehab old, both on the residential and commercial side.
And then how would you get that done?
All right. As an mayor, you don't get to do anything first. You have to do everything at the same time. It's what's great, it's what's frustrating, but you have to do everything at the same time, and you need to pursue both at the same time. I think it's probably more important on the commercial side to renovate what we have, as commercial seems to be more densely populated. So if you have one building in the downtown that's shoddy and in bad condition, that's going to affect the property values of the surrounding buildings. You're going to have the same thing to an effect in the residential side, and depending on how close the houses are together, how tight the neighborhoods are, you may still see that trend, which actually increases crime and does some other things. But I think you see a better correlation on the commercial side when you're pretty close together. On the residential side, yes, we need to build new houses. I mean, what is it? Tippecanoe County, they need 20,000 more homes over the next how many decades, I can't remember. The Area Planning Commission put together a report. And I'm completely fine with being a bedroom community in the Tippecanoe County. Councilman Seward, or President Pro Tem Seward, suggested there's a number of different options that you can look at for new residential development. The state keeps coming out with more and more because they know that we have a housing shortage. They just came out this year after this first session, or after the session, with a residential TIF district, so that you can establish a TIF, get the development going, capture the TIF on top of it, and use that to redevelop more and more. There's possibilities that we could do that with the county TIF. I know Josh Blue, the county council president, has talked about having somebody come in and just tell the county RDC what the residential TIF does. There's other options that we could offer, including tax abatements. I believe, I don't know if that's new, but we could offer residential tax abatements, or assistance with the reserve that we have in the general fund, assistance in putting development, whether it's a road, whether it's the base for the road, whether it's curb and sidewalk. We'd have to look at the benefit gained versus lost. On the tax side, I think President Pro Tem Seward said we would gain more taxes. That'd be true on the income tax side of things, but it wouldn't be true, at least right now, the way the county has us on the levy freeze. We wouldn't gather more property taxes on, as long as we have a levy freeze. Is that sufficient to answer the question?
Yeah, just say it.
Anita Whirling, Delphi. So this is really a question about if we were going to do new housing development, how much land is available within the jurisdiction of Delphi for new residential development?
I can't. I've been on Beacon a million times and clicked on the parcels a million times. Essentially, you have 3 large agricultural
Within the city
property owners
jurisdiction?
within city limits. The one has a couple different parcels on it. And I've had conversations with all 3 of those property owners, as well as multiple developers, as Councilman Seward does as well.
And would you be willing to, for the city to purchase the land, or how would you do that? And I'll ask both of you to start.
I'd be open to the possibility. I think you'd want to look at all the options that are available, whether it's tax payment, whether it's purchasing, which could be good for developers because that offsets their risk as they're developing, which is something that the Carroll County market, we have a little higher risk than Tiffany County markets. Normally, I think it takes about 3 years for the development to get sold out there. I think it's, from developers I've talked to, 5 to 7 years in Carroll County. So if you're looking at tax abatements, that could help alleviate the risk. If the city were to purchase the property, that could help alleviate the risk. If we were to do other incentives, that may offset the risk that they have by developing in Carroll County.
Yeah.
I would estimate about 300 acres from what I know, and then there are little pockets on top of that. So that's where I remember it from. I think that you have to look at this from an incentive standpoint. Tax abatements are one of those certainly, but you have other options, and I would not be in favor of purchasing land for development, and here's why. Number one, once you lock into that number, you've set a precedent. And any other land that's going to be purchased by anyone else is going to have to match that, and that's the way it works. I mean, hey, he got 10,000 an acre for his land, mine's even better, I want 15. And if you get into government running that, then you've lost your ability for the free market value. One of the other things that is possible as far as incentivizing the situation, we can also run discounted rates for the hookups, basically. You can take and say, okay, it costs this much amount of money to hook up, we're going to give you a break on that and maybe make it half price. We can also go back to what Carolyn Wagner did back in the 80s and early 90s when Zinford built up there on Hillcrest. And what she did was she worked with the city council and the board of works, and she helped market that. The city was a co-marketer for that property. And when they had open houses and advertisements for that, the city helped with that expense to bring more people in to look at those houses. And it's full. And it filled up. Took a little while on the last leg of that, but it filled up pretty rapidly.
Yeah, I'd be fine with waiving tap fees, depending on, I mean, this isn't carte blanche, but it's something that we would be more than happy to take a look at.
And that has happened in the past. I've heard that.
Got a question.
Okay, yes. Wallace,
So we
say your
got-
name and where you live.
Wally Donbach, I live down here on East Monroe Street.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we call it, East Monroe. I think this is a reasonably fair question for both candidates. So we've got 2 differing economic theories in your past statements. One is that a high tide raises all boats, but yet our per capita tax rate keeps going up. So to me, that's not equilibrium within economics. So has the city ever considered annexing property? And if not, why not? You talk about buying a property and spending taxpayer money. I don't agree with that, to do it, and I agree with your principles on government buying property and driving down the price of property. So, Mr. Mayor, what do you think?
Yes.
Probably would you be willing to?
Yes, the city, and we're in discussions with US Aggregates, or actually a parent company, Heritage Group, about a development out on Old Stony Road. We'd be more than happy to annex that. At this point, I don't think it's gonna go through because they want to save that property so they can mine in the future and have a little buffer. City of Delphi would be more than happy to annex property if it meant further development. But right now, if 300 acres, it seems like it'd be a lot more, is accessible to water lines and wastewater lines, something that you don't want to, let's see, we annexed a lot of the property back in 1997. We've got water and sewer lines there. You'd hate to put that infrastructure in too prematurely, and end up with an expense that doesn't get covered because the development doesn't get full.
I'm talking about property that brings dividends to Delphi taxpayers. So it's gonna grow the city of Delphi and relieve some of the tax burden that the city's getting saddled with. So please.
You're talking about one that has existing residences on it already, or?
Yes. And so hold on a second. So we're talking about buying a property closer to Lafayette to develop it for residents, so they can live closer to Lafayette, but then somehow that's gonna bring people into Delphi to shop. I don't see it. If I live closer to Lafayette, I'm gonna be more apt to drive to Lafayette to go shopping. So.
I know. I'm open to annexation.
With that. I'm very open to that too. I think that we have to look at stuff like that. And there's a couple areas here in town that might be very good to do that with.
Jane, would you stand and say your name?
I am Jane Van Sickle Miller. I don't live in Delphi right now, but I was born and raised, and I love this city, so I'm really interested in what's being said tonight. I go past Delmont Farms every day, and of course that development is not in the city limits, but certainly is close to the city. So I would say about the housing situation, because the property that we have in Delphi is so limited within the city limits, that is a possibility for housing.
Was there a question in there?
No, I'd just like to know how you feel about, looking beyond the city, and it wouldn't be in your jurisdiction.
I compliment Delmont Farms. They've done a nice job, and they've put a lot of houses in there and got a lot of population in there, which will hopefully help our school. That is a benefit of that. But I would surely like to see us develop land in our city. Close enough is good, but I'd like to hit the bullseye and have stuff in town.
Okay, Dale.
It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you want to say something else?
No, thank you.
At the last two city council meetings, there was discussion during budget talks about the amount of money budgeted to the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, over the last several years and in the future, and their role in what's being done in Delphi. How do you see that organization fitting into your future administration?
And to whom is that
I'll start
directed?
with Shane.
So the EDC plays a vital role in Carroll County. I wouldn't say it's needed, but it's pretty close up there. They have the power because they're not a governmental entity to, we could buy land, but they can do a little bit more in terms of investment. They can also have conversations with businesses or potential businesses or industries coming in that wouldn't be open to the open door law or the FOIA, so that those conversations are a little more protected. I would like to see more from the Economic Development Corporation. I'd like to see a better relationship between them and the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce, the Delphi Chamber of Commerce, and Flora Main Street. I would like to see them expand their mission a little bit more. Their mission, at least established in the bylaws, is really industry focused. And I would like to see them pick up some of the residential, some of the commercial, not to the point that they're stepping on the toes of other organizations, but to the point that they're working hand in hand with the other organizations.
Dale?
I have not been impressed, and I've had a lot of people in the community who have expressed that to me also, that they're not impressed with the EDC. There's a lot of questions. No one has the answers. They won't answer your question. When I was on the police department and we had a big case, you knew that you had to retain 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of evidence or whatever, and you could not release those to the public through the media. So everything else you talked about. Well, it seems like it's becoming an excuse to just keep everything under wraps. And I understand you've got to keep some of that under wraps because of the competition with other communities and everything like that. I understand that. But we're not getting any communication from them at all. And what you said a minute ago, that's the point. You got Florida Community Club, you got 2 chambers here, you got the EDC, and you've got all these other stuff. And one's going this way, and one's going that way, and all over the place. There's no common pole with this. And I'm hoping that through my leadership anyway, with not only with myself, but with a community development person, that we can maybe pull some of this together and have these groups work more together. Because I think we're losing a lot of stuff, and we're losing a lot of potential with that. So that's my goal anyway.
Rebecca? Okay. Questions? Uh-oh.
What exactly are we losing?
I think nobody knows, but I think we're losing a lot of potential. We've got 7 or 8 empty storefronts downtown. We've got other things that aren't coming here that are going other places. You don't know what you're losing because no one has any concept for what the other group is doing. Tippecanoe County, and I hate to bring up other communities because it's so much overdone, but they're doing it right. You have a representative from 3 or 4 or 5 different government entities. And they all go out and they all work on stuff. And they bring businesses and industry here to there. And it takes away the red tape in a lot of respect. Because the county council's represented, the commissioners are represented, a lot of the different groups are represented. So they know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. We just passed a budget the other night for a line item to give the EDC or to potentially give the EDC money. We've not seen a contract. We don't know how much they want or anything else.
That was not my question, actually. After the Stellar, there were 23 new businesses that came to Delphi after the Stellar grant. And if you want to talk about empty stores, before, there were a lot of them. And I can't see that, that we're missing out on anything. There's always going to be empty storefronts.
Probably right.
And so I'd like to know what you feel, both of you feel, has been the advantage of the economic development EDC. What have they done? If you're negative about it, then there's got to be a positive, we've got to balance it with something positive.
So the Economic Development Corporation has worked in step with the Carroll County Redevelopment Commission for the Hoosier Heartland Industrial Park, including the extension of utilities out to that park so that we have additional acreage to market in Carroll County for like manufacturing, some warehousing, whatever fits the needs of the community and would be a good fit in the Hoosier Heartland Industrial Park. They also work with Indiana Packers Corporation quite frequently in terms of working with the county council for tax abatements on new projects out there. And they work to follow up with leads that come in through various avenues, the IDC. I know they send stuff to me and our utility supervisors to fill out about how much pressure we have in water lines out there, how much our sewage capacity is, the wastewater treatment plant. So that's some of the things that the EDC does.
Thank you, Shane.
There again, we've got an industrial park that's empty. We've got REMC that lateral from downtown out there. We have no new development whatsoever. So, and how long is this out there? We were told that when, speculated, I won't say we were told, but we were speculated to that as soon as the Heartland went in, we would be booming. South end of Delphi would be booming. We've got 2 convenience stores, thank God. We've got True Value that filled an empty building out there, thank God. But other than that, nothing is in the industrial park. And it's been how many years? That's why the public is looking at this and saying, what are you doing?
It is frustrating to look out at the industrial park and see the RMC and that's the only building out there. But if you look at other communities that developed industrial parks 30, 40, 50 years ago, it took time to get the right industry in. And right now, with the dearth of employees, not only in Carroll County, but Tippecanoe County, and hopefully housing stock would help add to the number of eligible employees in the market, it's difficult to find an industry that would locate catty corner to IPC right now, when IPC is struggling to find people, Subaru is struggling to find people in Lafayette. I'm not saying that's the only reason why somebody wouldn't locate to Carroll County right now, but there's a number of different factors that you have to keep in mind when you're thinking about bringing industry to commercial.
Has any kind of construction been not allowed to happen in the industrial park by the EDC?
I think you said there was
I think
years
it's
back. I think you're the one that told me that,
I
so.
know.
Yes, the convenience store truck wash that went up in Climbers at the Andersons was refused by them. You can't tell me you can't find some place for a place like that with all those semis.
Okay, I'd like to move on. The 218% surplus of the general fund balance that the city of Delphi has, Mayor, where is that money?
No, it's not all general fund, that's, the state looks at,
Everything?
no, not everything, they don't look at our utilities. They look at general rainy day, MVH, LRS, CCI, police pension, and the 2 fire funds.
Okay, so that's more than the general fund.
Correct, it's
And so
all the
where is
tax
that
dollars
money?
that aren't
Where is that money?
in a bank.
CDs?
I believe we have one certificate of deposit for $1 million. $2 million?
No.
2 CDs for $1 million?
Another CD for 400,000.
Oh, yeah, from the fire territory.
For fire territory?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, you've got a good bank,
Yes.
and that's his tax money. So, is that taxing and hoarding? And that phrase was coined by the state.
There's different opinions on how much you should have in reserve. The city of Lafayette keeps about 12%, I think Lebanon and Frankfurt, one of them's 20, one of them's 30%. I do agree 218% is too much to have in reserve, to an extent, just to cover if something were to happen. One of the reasons the city of Delphi was selected to be a stellar recipient is because we had cash on hand to be able to leverage that money and turn $2-point-something million into $20 million. And so for the money that's in reserve, we don't want to spend all of it. We don't want to spend, down to where we have 30%.
So you just keep it in the bank?
No, I was getting to that.
I'm sorry.
You want to leverage it, right? You want to use it for community crossings match, which would be a 25-75. You want to use it for Indiana, both the legislative and executive branch have done a great job of offering more grant opportunities, whether it's next level trails, the broadband connections, I can't remember what they called that. They've got, they did a safe crossings one as well. So you want to use that money and leverage it to make what was $1, hopefully get $3 from the state for every dollar that you have, so you're able to do more. I'm done.
Okay. Dale, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think that having that money to leverage grants can be important. One of the things that I questioned, and I went down and talked to Larry at Printer at Purdue. He's a very intelligent economist, and I said, Larry, can we reduce taxes? He said, let me look at it. And I said, okay. So I went down the next day and I said, what do you find? He says, I don't think you should reduce taxes. Although we are pretty high, he says, I don't think it's a good idea. He said because of the tax caps and the lower income renting and everything like that, in the middle may see some relief, but it's not gonna be as much as what you think. Larry's suggestion was, you've got all this money in surplus, why not make sure your town is the best it can be? And one of the things that he suggested was, making sure that curbs